Welcome into another First of the Month episode. In this episode, we sit down with Demetrius Cain of the Nobletons Distillery in Union, Missouri. He tells us about his family legacy dating back to the 1500s. Well, there is more to the story. Cue the music. Welcome, bourbon aficionados, enthusiasts, and curious sippers alike, to Sip Wiselee, a podcast brought to you by the St. Charles Bourbon Society. My name is Jonathan Lee, and I will serve as your guide on this journey through the wonderful world of bourbon. Whether you are a seasoned connoisseur or just beginning to explore the depths of this flavorful spirit, our podcast is your passport to discovery, education, and pure enjoyment. Here, we'll dive into the history, craftsmanship, and flavors that make bourbon more than just a drink. It's a culture, a passion, and a way of life. Join us as we uncork the stories behind your favorite distilleries, uncover the secrets of barrel aging, and decode the complexities of tasting notes and flavor profiles. Each episode is crafted with care to inform, entertain, and inspire your own bourbon journey. So, grab your favorite glass, pour yourself some of your go-to bourbon, and join us as we raise a toast to the finer things in life. From barrel to bottle and glass to lips, let's sip wisely. Cheers. Welcome, bourbon friends, to the Sip Wiselee Podcast. This is episode 9, and my name is Jonathan Lee, and I will be your guide on this journey. We celebrate Nobletons Distillery in Union, Missouri. I sit down with Demetrius Cain, the head distiller there at that particular distillery, and shares his amazing story. Goes back way to the 1500s, and he brings us all the way forward to present, and it's just a lot of fun to listen to. It is really long, longer than what we typically have, but you know what, it's got a lot of history, a lot of intrigue in it, so it's well worth the listen. And I'm going to cut this opening and closing short so that we can make time for all the extra awesome stuff. So check out the show notes in your feed, go to our website, go to stcharlesbourbonsociety.com for more information, and let's get right into it. Take it away. Welcome into the First of the Month episode. I'm actually on location. I'm going to do a little GPS for you. So I am in Union, Missouri at Nobletons Distillery, and I tell you what, this is a pretty cool little space. We were just talking about how he upgraded back in January, and I will tell you who he is in a moment. But it's got a cool, comfort, woodsy vibe to it. So I'm excited to be here at Nobletons with the owner and the distiller, Demetrius. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to get into all your statistics and stuff like that here in a minute. But before we get too far into the bourbon aspect, how about you tell the audience a little bit about yourself there?
Yeah, so I would say probably kind of where I, like a little bit about me is we're 9 years legal. So we got our DSP 9 years ago. I was born and raised around, all of this. I'm a farmer by trade. But I think it depends on who describes what kind of farmer you are. Because I would say I'm not one of the good farmers. I'm one of the farmers that I'm kind of a free range farmer. I kind of learn as I'm doing. So I do things wrong a lot of the time, but we have a lot of fun with it. And I just like being out on the land. And born and raised in Northern Oregon. My family's from here. So my family left here in the after Prohibition. My family's original distillery was confiscated by the federal government. It was right down here on the Burbus River. So from 1824 to 1920, my family had the distillery here, and then in 1920 my family went bankrupt, and they joined the rest of the family out in Northern Oregon, where I was born and raised, and ever since, and then I came back because of college, so I came back to the Midwest during early 2000s, and had the opportunity to buy up some of the original farm ground, and then I've been here ever since.
Awesome. Yeah, so doing the research for the distillery in the episode here, definitely did some reading into the history and learn more about the distillery and that kind of thing. It's very interesting, so I can't wait to kind of get into that part of that. So before we get too far, let's learn a little bit more about you and your bourbon statistics. So what would you consider your bourbon age?
Probably from before I was born to long after I'm dead. This stuff will still be in my bones. I've been around it my entire life. So I'm the ninth generation family distiller. So there's always one distiller in my family, going back to the last 9 generations since we went independent, and that was in 1824. But my family's been distilling since the 1500s. So, for me, and I wouldn't say it's bourbon, whiskey. So whiskey's been in my blood and bones for a long time, and it's sometimes a little bit beyond. Like, I don't always know why. It's just second nature to me, and I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I think we want to cover that point right there that you made. You consider whiskey, not bourbon.
Correct.
And we'll talk about the difference between those, because I know we got some people out there going, okay, so what is the difference? I like to liken it to something else, but we'll want to finish this component first before we move on to that. And so it's been around your whole life.
Yep.
When you drink, how do you prefer your beverage?
Well, so a lot of people always say, it's like you drink wheat whiskeys during the summer and you drink rye whiskeys in the winter. I've heard that a lot. And I think there's some truth to that. I think that it kind of depends on the season, where you're at, all these different things. But for me, I drink my whiskey with ice in the summer, and I drink whiskey with no ice in the winter. And so it kind of, for me, it just has to do, like, I'm a diehard rye lover. So I love rye whiskey. I like high rye bourbons. I like rye whiskey. I like 100% rye whiskeys. I like full proof. I love barrel strength. That's essentially what I drink. To me, it's and barrel strength to me is very different than like the hazmats that have become popular. I'm a huge proponent of between 125 and 115. I do like some 105s and 110s, but I prefer old whiskey that's been aged well, that is high enough proof that I can have one glass. So I drink it all kinds of ways, but depends on the season for me.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because it's 110 degrees outside. To drink a straight bourbon or whiskey with that, I mean, that's just warm. Why wouldn't you want it chilled a little bit? That makes a lot of sense. And those, hopefully you're listening, you listened to the last episode. It was the blacksmith tasting episode, and we talked about at the rack house, do they see a difference in sales with wheateds in the summer, because it has that smoother, less heat to it because of that rye in the winter and that kind of thing. And so they coined the term wheated in the heated. It's kind of, cause they kind of feel like they do sell more wheats in the summertime. That makes a lot of sense. So what is your go-to pour then? I'm sure that probably changes as well, but currently, let's say, as of September 2024, what's your kind of go-to pour?
So I'm a huge fan of our, and anybody that follows our whiskey will know probably one of my favorite mash bills that we pour, which is a 51 sweet corn, 45 rye, 4% malted barley. It's our most popular mash bill. It is not my mash bill. That one goes back. Sorry, that was the ice machine for anybody listening. When you come out and have the distinct pleasure of sitting at our bar, you get to hear it too. But that mash bill goes back to 1836. And so it's the second generation family distiller. We consider him to be the only master distiller in our family. So the rest of us are just kind of steward distillers. Because I'm still learning. Everyone before me learned. But he did a lot of the writings and a lot of the compiling of information. and that's his mash bill. And I consider it to be one of our best mash bills that we produce. I love my mash bill that I produce. That is my own that I came up with. But, it's like, I think it's important to pay homage to those who are true masters. And so.
Absolutely. Very nice. So let's tackle the question before we play our game. Whiskey versus bourbon, or whiskey, how's it different than bourbon? So can we help explain that?
So bourbon, for history buffs out there, here's my little punch at the federal government, beyond many, many more punches that we're going to have along this entire journey. But modern day bourbon is a creation of the World War II. 51% corn, so it has to be made from 51% corn and aged in a new charred oak American barrel, both of which are World War II creations in order to save American farming. And that doesn't mean anything bad. I'm a farmer, and I respect saving American farming. But when people try whiskey that came from pre-Prohibition, and they're like, this is bourbon, it's not the same as the bourbon today. So when people critique bourbon today versus bourbon of the past, I think it's one thing to note that you're drinking two different products. Both phenomenal, they're just different. And so whiskey is any grain beverage that is made from grain of any kind that is aged in oak. So you can have new oak, you can have used oak, you can have toasted oak, and that's essentially what it is everywhere else in the world. So bourbon is a product of the Americas. So you can make it anywhere inside the United States, and bourbon, but it has to be made using a new barrel, charred, and it has to contain a minimum of 51% corn. Gotcha. So this mash bill that we're sipping on today, this is a 51% corn. Now we malt our corn, and we use sweet corn. So it's a malted sweet corn. My family's always done it that way. We malt all of our grains, so we don't use enzymes. So that is something that kind of lends itself to the flavor and profile. So the choices like that, that's something that's permitted within bourbon to do that. But if it doesn't have 51% corn, it's not aged in a new charred oak barrel, then it's not bourbon, and it would just be a whiskey.
Okay. So we have bourbons out there that meet those, but then they are secondary finishes. Are those still technically bourbons?
They are, but they are not categorized under their label qualification within the TTB.
Okay.
And so they're qualified as a specialty finished product, which is a little bit interesting. Some distillers say that because they started their life as a bourbon, they should be able to end their life as a bourbon. And I agree sometimes with that. But I'm also a very ardent supporter of rigid, non-changing rules. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because for me, being a 9th generation family distiller, it's really hard when you're comparing apples to oranges. Because let's say the regulation changes 30 years from now. Well, now the whiskeys that were judged today are different than what they are in the future, and that becomes, and that's one thing that I love about Scotch, is that Scotch is very rigid. They have a lot of qualifications, and they're rigid to what they've had for hundreds of years. And so when you try these Scotches that are 50 years old, they pertain to the same rules that the Scotches today are made with.
Yeah.
And I like that. Now, as my wife puts it, she's like, that's your old crotchety man coming out. But I like rigidity in customs and rules. And
it's really a product that lends itself to comparisons, right? And like you said, if you want to make a fair comparison, then those rules or the regulations or benchmarks, whatever you want to call it, need to be similar or the same. I come from the education world, and if we want to say that today's children aren't learning at the same rate as they were back then, are we using the same measure? Are those metrics the same? Is the assessment the same? And if it's not, how can you really draw a fair comparison to what we're doing today versus what we did back then? So I think that's a great way to think about it, because I always wrangle with it, and Angel Envy is the one that comes to mind. It's got the bourbon, but also it's finished in sherry cask or whatever fancy. And so people call it bourbon, but I'm like, is it technically bourbon? So it just
it's technically a specialty. It's a specialty distilled spirit. And if you look on the label, if you look up the label through the TTB, you can actually see that. And we have brands that work with us that we bottle for, that they buy our product and they finish it and bottle it, and it's put under a specialty distilled spirit. And a lot of people ask, we do not finish. My family never has. We have 200 years legal. 200 years, 100 years before Prohibition, and 9 years legal. So we just had a little bit of a respite there for all the feds out there listening. But we, kind of the way that we look at it is, my family never had that tradition in the past. It's not a tradition that's common up until recently, and my family just never has. So I like to say we never will. Under my direct, some days I will be replaced, someday I will die, somebody will take over the seat, and at that point they get to make those decisions. But for me, we will not finish, and it's because I'm kind of a crotchety old. I like rules.
You've got a standard or a product in mind, and it's just
well, and it's not that I don't like finished product.
Yeah,
there are a lot of really good ones out there, but we have a really, really deep and old tradition, and to me, I think it's really important to keep to that. I think too often brands start with that, and then they lose it along the way because they're trying to change whatever the consumer wants. Yep. And no offense to the consumer, but I think at the end of the day, consumers want good products that are consistent. So if you buy a bottle of Planter's whiskey when you get married, and 10 years down the road, you're celebrating some big event, and you grab another bottle of it, it should be the same. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I stand, is make good products consistently all the time.
Yeah. No, that's a good stance. So it makes complete sense for me. So, all right, we're going to get into more of the history here in a minute, but we're going to play a quick little game.
Okay.
All right. And I think it's like trademarks. We're going to call it this or that. If you had to lose a sense, would it be this as in taste, or that as in smell? As he breathes in deeply.
So from a scientific standpoint, taste is 70% smell. And so I think when you look at it from a scientific perspective, I think that it's important to look at it from that kind of, if you said sight, I would probably lose sight in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. So I would say the physical taste, as long as I can retain smell, because based upon, looking at it from a scientific standpoint, is I believe that you could maintain some sense of taste as long as you still had smell, or an illusion of it. But it would be really hard as a distiller. It's not one that I like to think about, because there was a period when, during COVID, the first time when I had COVID, I lost smell and taste, and there was a moment where it's I've talked to people after the fact that lost it completely. Mm-hmm. They have struggled to ever get anything back. And there was a moment when I lost it, I was like, if this is it, we're done.
Yeah.
And so, I would probably, say, I wouldn't want to lose either, but if I was to lose one, I'd lose taste. And if I lost taste, I probably wouldn't be distilling anymore.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's partially where the question came from, as we come off of COVID, and you hear a lot of people who lost the sense of smell and taste and all that, and it was a real thing. And then I think about my wife, who can't breathe because of allergies and everything else, and so she struggles with that. And now she's gone through testing and some surgeries and whatnot, and now she can smell better. And now she's noticing that this bomb pop she always loves has actually 3 different flavors to it. You can actually taste all 3 different flavors. So that goes back to your taste is 70% smell. So she didn't have that smell, but she did have some version of tasting. So it's very interesting. So that would be a really tough thing to lose in your area, and with your background and your career. I mean, with the 6-year-old and 8-year-old home, sometimes I wish I didn't have smell. But it is what it is. But no, that's a good. Leave it to you to put some science behind your answer. So that's a good one. It's a good.
It's about the only science we're going to get today. The moment I start drinking, the science goes out the window.
There you go. So, all right, so let's learn a little bit more about Nobletons. The website talks all this history, and it goes back to 1500s and all that. So, in a fast version, we're not going to go decade by decade or even century by century, but how did we get from family history back in 1500s to where we are now, 9 years legal?
Yeah. So my family, so I'll go back to the 1500s and we're just going to quickly jump through the generation. So my family has been my family's been brewing beer since we left Scandinavia. So my family hails from northern Scandinavia, which is like anytime people see me, they're like, that makes sense. And that's where our yeast comes from. So really my family started so we use the same yeast that we've used for all of the hundreds of years. It is my most guarded secret. It's the one thing that at the end of the day, if we lost everything, that would be the one thing that I'd run back, like apart from like my own children, wife, and I would run back into a burning building for that yeast. Like I feel like that is my duty, and I carry it with me everywhere we go. So it goes home with me at night, comes back in the morning. Nobody touches it. Nobody's allowed to come in contact with it except for me, and that's how it's always been. So my family, I think the nice way of putting it is they forcefully inserted themselves via longboats into northern Scotland. And the other way of putting it is they burned and pillaged and took over a country. But I like to say my family they were just participants. They were just there. I don't know, I'm like, history is a cruel thing.
Yeah.
But somehow at some point my family ended up in northern Scotland. I don't really know how they got there. As my family history goes, it could have been through marriage too. The documentation, my family kind of comes from some noble houses, and so it could have been through marriage. I don't really know, but there wasn't a lot of writings in the 1300s, 1400s, and 1500s that we have still today. But around the 1500s, my family they owned a decent amount of land in northern Scotland, and part of that land that they owned some brewing abbeys, and they began distilling. And so they began distilling Scotch, and in the 14s and then into the 15s, my family decided to leave Scotland because they were Catholic, and they started losing their heads.
Yep.
Sorry about the alarm.
I appreciate it because, for those who have heard or don't know, I've done many podcasts over the years on the education side. And a lot of the guests, when I had those podcasts, they'd be in their schools and the bell would go off. It's the luxury and the benefit of being in your environment. So things happen in the business and it's just going to happen. So I don't think my audience is going to matter. So don't worry about it.
So, so the 1500s, my family left Scotland and came to Virginia. And so my family worked in Virginia, had the distinct pleasure of working at, we have some documentation from Mount Vernon. So my family, and I would love to say that my family, we were the distilling. We don't really know. We just know that we sold rye. We sold some rye and some other grains to Mount Vernon, which is pretty cool, leading up to, the Revolution in 1776. And then going forward, my family left Virginia, worked their way through Kentucky, and we worked at numerous different distilleries in Kentucky, worked for different families out there. And then in 1824, my family put in roots here in Missouri, and we got our federal license. So 1824 up until 1920, my family was distilling legally. The government confiscated 2,000 casks. They were moved to St. Louis in 1920, and my family essentially went bankrupt, and we never saw those barrels again. So at the end of Prohibition, those barrels had been misplaced.
Convenient.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things. Like there's a lot. We weren't the only ones. There's a lot of distilleries. there's amazing brands that never have been resurrected that had similar stories. And so, in theory, my family continue to think for the next 100 years or so about if they ever were to start a distillery, what that would look like. And they, in theory, doled out knowledge. And so I grew up kind of around all that knowledge and experience. One of the cool things is that my great-grandfather, so my grandfather raised me. My great-grandfather also helped raise me. And my great-grandfather died at 106, born in the 1800s, died at 106.
Wow.
So his knowledge, he knew the family when they left here in the 1920s. And so there's a lot of knowledge there. And we still continue all those practices today. So we do a 48-day fermentation. We do heirloom yeast that's been passed down in all our family. We malt all of our grain. We do, all these things that we do, and we do because of tradition, and they weren't taught to me from just a book. My great-grandfather was one of the helpers and distillers when they lost the license the first time. Mm. So a lot of it's first-hand account, which is unique, to say the least.
Yeah.
And really, I feel incredibly honored to have that.
Yeah, so that time period, the 1820 to 1920-ish, was it the Nobleton's name, or was it a different name?
No, so at the time, it was registered under the Terrell family, which we're descendants of, and it had changed a few different times, from Roth Creek to, they just changed the name of the companies around. Nobletons actually is derived from so my family has a lot of traditions, but one of the traditions that we have is that we write toasts. So when you get married, your best man writes a toast for you, mm-hmm. and that becomes your family creed. And so my toast, the final line to it is, for the noble character of those we keep, salute. So it's about the people that surround us, not us individually. So it's your community that you build. And it was kind of my wife's idea. So we were sitting there trying to figure out what we were, and it sounds nerdy, but my wife's like, what are we trying to do? And I was like, well, you were trying to be noble. We're trying to make spirits. We're trying to, and so she's like, so tons of noble. And I was like, well, yeah, but and she was like, so what about Nobletons? And it was like right there on the wall, for the noble character, those we keep. And the comedy is after we named the company Nobletons, and we bought the domain, and we launched all of our social media, and then we had about 500 people from the town of Nobletons begin following us in Canada and sending us messages saying, where are you guys located? I'm here in Nobletons, but I can't find you. And that was a moment that was kind of funny. I was like, oh, there's actually a place called Nobleton. But yeah, so we didn't name it after ourselves because I don't want the idea. One thing that I've always told all my people is, it's not about me. It's not about us. It's about the people that pick up a bottle. It's like, that's really what keeps a company like ours going. We don't have, we're farmers at the end of the day. We didn't come into this with a lot of money. We've never taken out loans. So we built this, the very first distillery was on my farm. It was in 15 by 15 square foot. That was a 235 square foot garden shed on my farm that I turned into a small distillery. And then we moved from that to 1,500 square foot, then a 5,000, then a 6,000, and then 30,000. And now we're building more buildings. And but it started really small. And the only reason we did that was because people cared enough to buy bottles. And still to this day, that's how I still feel. It's not because of me or my family that people bought the bottles. It's because we produce a really good product that's that I believe we strive to be worthy of that purchase, because I don't want to not be worthy of that purchase. So
no, I wouldn't call it nerdy. I think it's one thing I've learned in this process of going in this podcast and meeting the different distillers the last 4 months. So much goes into the name, whether it's history, whether it's the thought process, whether it's a expectation that you have for your product. And I mean, it's thoughtfulness, and so it sounds like That's gone into everything you've done, including your name. So this makes sense. I mean, the nerdy part would be taste is 7% smell, but not necessarily how you came up with your name. So, but no, that's really cool. So, let's go back to 9 years, right? So it's been official 9 years, Nobletons. On the website, it talked about 7 years, 7 years, and 7 years.
Yeah, so that's an aging practice that my family has used when we were legal for that amount of time, and so obviously we haven't been. So it's in theory is like that's what we're chasing, and that's what we put on the website was this is the way it's been done before, and this is what we're kind of chasing. Now, does that mean we won't have bourbons? Does that mean that we won't? No, we will still make bourbons that have only been aged in new oak barrels. And we recently launched one. We recently put one of our brands out as a bourbon, which is really fun and exciting. But my family practiced that practice, and it goes back hundreds of years of aging barrels in different types of oak. And it's a Scotch practice. So if you ever go to Scotland uses a lot of different barrels to produce the whiskey they use, and they produce. And it's a very old practice. The same thing, like we cook all of our grain separately. So we cook the corn, the wheat, the barley, the rye, all in separate kettles under different. So most distilleries will cook the corn first, and then as it cools down, you'll pitch each succeeding product, each grain in. And for the longest time, I thought every distiller did it the way we do it, which is you cook every grain separate, and then you blend them as they go into the fermenter. Once they're properly cooled, so they don't scorch each other. And it wasn't until somebody made a point to say that they cook all the grains separately, and they're Canadian. I was like, it was a moment I was like, okay, well, Canada's doing it. Scotland does it. That's where my family still does it. We just never changed. And it's partially because of the 100-year drop. And we went bankrupt. And so all the technology continued advancing. And my family didn't know about that.
Yeah.
And so, and we just won't change. Because now we're at this point where I'm like, okay, well, we've been doing it this way for 9 years. I found out that we were doing it oddly for American distillers a year and a half ago on a podcast. We were doing like a virtual podcast on via webcam, and I found out that we have a really long fermentation and that we cook our grains weird. And I was like, well, I guess we're in it for now. I'm like, maybe the next generation will be like, this is highly inefficient. And it is very inefficient the way we do things, but we're the growers, so we have the distinct pleasure of being inefficient.
Yeah. So let's talk about that point, because I think that's another really cool component that's different than a lot of your other distilleries, is that not only are you distilling it, but you're growing the product. You said multiple times you're a farmer. Let's talk about a little bit about that. So all the grain that goes into your whiskeys, bourbons are
heritage grains, non-GMO, 100% organic, not registered. It's too expensive. I would love to say that all of those like certifications aren't a money thing, but they are. But we use regenerative agriculture practices. So we use our focus is to regenerate topsoil, because the better the soil, the better the grain, the better the harvest. And so all of our grains have been passed down to my family for hundreds and hundreds of years. So the same kernels we use today are the natural evolution of grain from the 1800s. We malt all of it, so we don't use artificial enzymes. And not that I have any problem with them. I just have never used them, so we won't. And that's not to say that we couldn't use them, but we just haven't.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of continue to just malt the grain. I would say that we're pretty good at malting grain at this point. It's still highly inefficient. Like if you took a look at our, the inefficiencies of the way we do things. If I wasn't the farmer, we couldn't afford to do it this way. But because we're the farmers, we have the distinct opportunity to just take our time.
Yeah. I feel like we need to explain what that officially means. Like I know malted barley, but I've never actually put a definition behind that.
Yeah, so malting grain is essentially the same thing in every single grain. So essentially what you do is you soak the grain, usually for a period of about 4 to 6 hours, depending on the grain. Corn is going to absorb water faster. So essentially you soak the grain 4 to 6 hours, depending on, not 4 to 6, 6 to 8 hours, depending on the style of grain, the type of grain. Corn's going to soak faster. Wheat will soak okay. Barley and rye. Barley's actually pretty quick to absorb water. Rye is kind of a pain, but that's rye. I love rye because it's like the hardest thing to do.
That's why it's spicy, right?
Yeah, it's just, well, and that's a misnomer.
Okay.
Rye is spicy until it turns 14. After 14, it gets really sweet. Not that I have any experience with it or anything, but it just
one of those things you've done wrong.
Yeah. So essentially, you soak the grain, then you pull it out of the water bath, drain the water out, and then you spread it on the ground and leave it in a dark climate. And then within about 3 to 4 days, you'll get a germ, depending on the species. So every species is a little bit different. Corn's going to try to mold on you like 9 or 10 times. Corn is awful. You can only essentially malt corn in open fields. So you have to have enough air passage over it. You can't do it in a dark room. So we've been for forever. My family, what we do is we put it. We did it over gunny sacks. So we spread gunny sacks out across the field and sprout the corn, and then you would scoop all the gunny sacks up, and you'd then run it through. You'd essentially toast it to get rid of the germ. We still do that. We call it field malting. It's become more technologically advanced, and now we do it over tarps. So we do it like silage tarps. So anybody that's farms out there, they know what a silage tarp is. They're 180 feet wide by hundreds of feet long. Just depends on how big you want to order them. And then we scoop it all up, and then we put it over a metal grate, and we just rake it across the grate, and you just kind of light the ground on fire underneath it. And serves two purposes. It burns the field and toasts the grain.
That sounds efficient.
It's very inefficient. I tell everybody, I'm like, if there's one tradition I want to kill, that's the tradition. My goal in life is to kill. But we just haven't been able to get away from it yet. We've tried using enzymes, and the whiskey just doesn't taste the same.
Yeah.
So we just continue to go back to what we know. Long hours and good whiskey.
Yeah, so that sounds good. So let's get into the whiskey part. So we're going to actually taste it in the next episode, our tasting episode, as those who have followed us know. You've got, obviously, some specialty bottles and stuff like that, and we're sipping on a specialty bottle here. It's delicious. You have two main products, right? We
have a lot of products actually beyond that.
Yeah, okay. The website has two. It has your planters, and it has your copper dome, right? Let's talk about those two, and then if we have more time, we'll talk about all the other ones.
Well, so we are a contract distillery, and that's why I mentioned that.
Okay.
We also make whiskey for a lot of other people, many of which we can't talk about.
Yeah.
And we're planning to do line extensions by the end of the year for our planters, and then all of our single barrels. So our single barrels we really don't talk about online, but our single barrels, to me, it's like if you want to have like the greatest expression of our whiskey. Obviously, our everyday drinkers are great, but snag some single barrels, and they will not disappoint. And if you have an opportunity to come out to the distillery and actually get to drink them right out of the barrel with me, which is sometimes entertaining depending on what time of day you come. If you come in the morning, you're going to get the more sober Demetrius. By the end of the afternoon, you get all the stories and the not-so-sober Demetrius. But yeah, so our whiskey, Planters, is our flagship.
Okay.
And then Copper Dome is an affiliate brand that we launched with Southeast Missouri College.
Okay.
So it benefits the college. And our claim to fame with that is that we produced more money for the college in 2 years than Walmart has in the lifetime of the deal with Walmart.
Wow.
So we're really, really proud of that. I didn't go to one of my business partners went to SEMO. But we're really proud to give back to the communities that help support us. It's raising the next generation of farmers. That's essentially what our goal has always been, which is to help push forward American agriculture, but more specifically Missouri agriculture. And it's not because I don't want American agriculture to succeed, but I want the agriculture that I can have an impact on to succeed, because the better it does, the selfish side of me means the better I do.
Yeah.
And so the more farmers we have that are willing to grow our crops, because we work directly with them. So not only do I farm, but we also directly work with small farmers. So we will help them manage their farms. We'll go plant the seeds with them. We'll help them with their, cost of production and all these different things, managing their soil, all of these things, if they're willing to grow our heirloom grains. And then we get to pay them twice as much as the market because we make whiskey, so we get to profit share with them.
Nice.
So
that's pretty cool. Yeah, that explains why the first time I saw Copper Dome was actually
Missouri.
at Southeast. Yeah, I was just down there not too long ago and happened to pop in the liquor store. I'm like, wait a second, okay, but that makes sense. Very cool. All right, so our next episode, we're gonna actually taste some of these products. Demetrius is gonna kind of tell us a little bit more about each one as we taste those. It sounds like those listening need to come to Nobletons here in Union for a tour, preferably at the end of the day, or a better experience. It sounds like. But what days are you open? What tours are available? That kind of thing.
So right now we are open Friday and Saturday, but in September we are planning to open Wednesday through Saturday, because we're at a point where we're pretty busy Friday and Saturday, and it would be nice to have a few more days to offer. And so we're going to be opening up more days, but right now it's Friday and Saturday. So here in September when this airs, we will be opening more days a week, 3 to 7 through the week, noon to 7 on Saturday. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a pizza kitchen, so you can come out, have a stone-fired pizza. It's really good, and it's crazy affordable. Because at the end of the day, where am I making my money? It's off of whiskey.
Yeah.
Our goal is for you to drink whiskey and have a pizza that, So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun doing tours, letting you try the product, walking you through our 30,000 square foot facility. We build all of our stills by hand. So it's kind of a unique experience. And one that every single one of my teammates, everybody that's on our team is just does a really, really good job of showcasing.
Very cool. So I know you've got booking options on the website.
Yep.
So you go to Nobleton's website and find that. That's going to be linked in our show notes. So for those who are listening, you can just click on the link right there. It'll take you right to the website. Come on down there, check out this cool facility, taste some of their products, hear the stories. It's going to be well worth it. And in the meantime, taste those products because the tasting episode's coming out in a couple weeks. Demetrius, thank you very much for having me at your facility. And great conversation. Probably went a little longer than it was supposed to, but just when you have that much history, it's going to take a little time to tell it.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See, I told you it was an awesome story. I mean, how cool. Family comes over from Europe, lands on the East Coast, gets started into the farming there, rye, and brings it to the state of Missouri. And family distills for 100 years until that silly thing called Prohibition and forces the family out west. He comes to college back here in the Midwest and gets a chance to buy up his land, family land again, and starts distilling back on the land, has his license as of 2016. Just an amazing story. I mean, there's no other words for that. So, again, huge thanks. Shout out to Demetrius for being willing to sit down during the workday. Tons of stuff going on at the distillery, obviously, during the week. But, he was gracious with his time and just great. So if you have not been out to the distillery, you definitely should go check it out. He says he's expanding the hours in September. So as of today, it sounds like it's going to be expanded to Wednesdays through Saturdays. So go check them out. It's an amazing facility. He's got some great stories and, some great bourbon too. Great whiskey. And so you should definitely check it out and head out there. So thanks for checking out the show. Hanging in there for the long, awesome, amazing story. And be sure to share this with your friends and check out the show notes and our website, stcharlesbourbonsociety.com. We actually recorded the tasting episode while I was out there, and it is going to be amazing as well. So hopefully you get to liquor store, preferably A1 Wine and Spirits on Mexico Road in St. Peters, Missouri. Pick up some bottles of Nobletons whiskey and be ready to share your thoughts on their amazing product. Thanks for checking it out. Until the next time, be sure to sip wisely. Thank you for tuning in to the Sip Wiselee Podcast. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button to get the latest episodes. Don't forget to visit our website at stcharlesbourbonsociety.com for the show notes. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share them on social media. Follow us on all platforms by searching for St. Charles Bourbon Society. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge to sip wisely. Cheers.